Happy belated Thanksgiving for those who didn't come last Sunday. I'm sure you had a very festive time. I'm sure there was a lot of food to eat and just as much pride in those who prepared the meals. The only problem is that some of the pride was falsified because some of the food wasn't good. It's always caused me to become curious when pride supersedes the result. When somebody think they're better than what they are, and then they show it, but they're really not. Somebody cooked a custard last week that wasn't sweet enough, but yet some of you forced it down because they sat there with you and coerced you and watched you partake in eating something that your heart had no desire to eat. It's amazing how many people enslave their tongue palate by the food that they ate. It's even more disturbing when you see the people who prepared the meal with their chest stuck out like, I know I'm the bomb. Pride is a tough thing. We'll see here with Nebuchadnezzar, a great king with a warped mind. Because a prideful man is always looking down on things and people. And of course, as long as you're looking down, you cannot see something that is above you. And I'm quoting C.S. Lewis. You see, too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want, to impress people that they don't like. Let me say that again. I know that's not for none of y'all. That's not you, but just raise your hand if you know somebody like that. It's not you. I mean, you're a lot smarter than that to worry about what other people say. But there are some people out here that the narrative in their life is P-R-I-D-E, pride. Too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people that they don't like. Oh, yo, come on. You know people who are getting ready to go out and drop it like it's hot and they go get a dress, know they're going to take it back. Don't waste nothing on this dress. I can't get no deodorant stain in it. I can't because I just got to look good for tonight. Because I got to impress. Because my pride is on the line. We have been taught by our parents the benefit of pride, and there are some good benefits in pride. We just don't know when to stop. We just continue to use pride to make us feel good. It gives you a false accusation of who you really are. And when pride gets involved in your life, it doesn't care who you hurt. Because pride causes your 20/20 vision to become tunnel vision. And you think about yourself. Those who are married can understand what I'm going to say next. Because it is better to lose your pride with someone you love rather than to lose someone you love with your useless pride. Yeah, that's for those who've been in love for real. Because a lot of times when we are in heated discussions with our significant others, it's not about the resolve, Donnie. It's always about the win. And I tell people when I'm counseling them that anytime you start keeping score when you're having an argument, you both have lost. Because you never get to the point of resolve. And we never want to get to the resolve. We just want to win. So when you have a good point that's valid, your voice tone raises. Because you want to make sure that the person you're arguing with know that you got a point. Rather than keeping a calm voice and say, listen, how do we meet halfway? How do we resolve this issue? We don't do that because of pride. We have been taught to fight rather than converse. We've been taught from a young age that we resolve things with our fists and not our brain. Like I would say mouth, but some of y'all mouths are so filthy that the way you cuss can cause people to go into a massive heart attack. You cuss fluently to where people have watched your mouth and considered making the way you verbalize certain words, make that a class. You know I'm not lying. I know I'm telling the truth because it always gets quiet in the church when you bring forth and introduce the truth. Pride get in the way. You can tell people who lack self-discipline when they are arguing because the voice is raised and they start using French words. You know, you as a Christian really don't understand what they're saying. And they just keep on moving on. They're doing that because they want to win. And a lot of times, winning and being the bigger vessel doesn't mean being victorious in the flesh. A lot of times it means he who is the greater, being the greater servant, and being the greater servant means being the most humble and sometimes swallowing your pride for the bigger cause. Here we are right here. Nebuchadnezzar was a great king with a lot of pride. He was doing the time of the story with Daniel, and we understand Daniel and what happened with Daniel in the lion's den and all this, but we forget Nebuchadnezzar. We forget the king that was causing all this. Nebuchadnezzar was very interesting because he was a leader who decided who can get more cooperation out of people he conquered by allowing them to serve their gods. So he said, if I let them serve their God, I'll get more precipitation or more cooperation, I should say, out of them. Now, here's the thing that gets me with Nebuchadnezzar, James. Sometimes they say he would even go and serve the God with the people. He would go and have fellowship with the people, but he was doing what we do. Go to church, but don't know God. He would go to church because his agenda was, if they see me coming in and getting to know their God a little bit, it doesn't mean that I'm going to act on their God. It just means that I'm just continuing to bamboozle them and I'm just drawing them in closer to me. He did this with a lot of his servants. He would go and see their God periodically and see what they were doing with their God. He worshiped with them at times. But he was one who always had the ability, watch this here, to rule their gods. He would go and watch them serve their God, and then he can find the weakness in their God. So once he found the weakness in their God, then he would rule them and their God. But I serve a God that no man can rule. I serve a God that's faultless. So in the story it says that this new God was different. This new God that Daniel was telling him about, he had no inkling of who this God was. This God was mysterious to him. He was different. Daniel kept telling him that this God that Daniel served, he's the God who made Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar could not believe this because Nebuchadnezzar was noted for all the great buildings that he built. All the walls, and we're going to get into it in a few minutes, that he built. And when you get to go overseas and see some of these places that you read in the Bible, it is mind-boggling because how did these people build such walls with so few instruments? They used people. People were the instruments. So he said, I'll let you serve your God a little bit as long as you understand I rule you and your God, and you're going to do what I command you to do. That's Nebuchadnezzar in a nutshell. He never realized that eventually he would be conquered by his creator. He never realized that eventually he would be conquered by his creator. Doesn't that sound interesting? That sounds like you in a nutshell. Yeah, because you serve a God and not the God. Your God is praying you get from check to check. That's your God. But your God can be conquered because you can lose your job. With no fault of your own, they can just shut down the whole process because they're not getting the funding that they feel they need. Yeah, he's just like us, no different. Your God is your car. Your car is your house. You clean your house more than you clean your spirit. That's your God. And those gods are okay, but they're little gods. And these gods have faults in them. Because when you're sick, you can't clean your house. And when you can't clean your house, now you got a dirty God. Some of you probably keep dirty gods around. You know, you've become acquainted with the dirty God. You have cleaned your house. Yeah. Truth be told, you have cleaned it. There's a story that's a true story that states that happened over in Europe. And it was about this beautiful ship. It was a big, beautiful ship. And everything that a ship designer could imagine was built into this ship. Not only was it the biggest ship ever built, but it was fast also. Every proven safety feature and several new features went into its construction. Watch this here. The designer of this ship boasted that the ship was so safe, not even God could sink the ship. Yes, true story. This guy, this designer boasted about this ship that he had created. He was so safe and he was so sure about it, he said, not even God could sink this ship. Ship was the Titanic. The designer was more assured of himself and his ability and his capabilities. He was more assured of that than assured of giving it all to God. And we do that too. We do that. We live like that at times. When your income tax check comes, you on top of the world. I wish I had somebody that once in the church would stand up and say, man, you preaching. You preaching. Because every now and then when you get some extra money that you didn't expect, your whole demeanor change. You don't speak to people for 2 weeks because now you can go to IHOP instead of Waffle House. You look at people, you want everybody to see you get out the car going into the IHOP. Sit me up front. I don't want to go to right here. Sit me up here. I'll wait till you clean the table. So anybody come in here from over in my set, they'll see that I am at IHOP. Somebody say pride. It's the same thing. You get a pair of shoes you can't really afford, you wear them everywhere. Why did you wear those boots to the family get together? I mean, you sharp to the T at the family get together. You want everybody to see your boots. And everybody else got on sweatsuits and blue jeans, and they just relaxed, having a good time playing Uno. And you sharp to the T because you want everybody to see your pride. You're no better than the designer of the Titanic who said out of his mouth that God couldn't even sink this ship. God couldn't even sink the ship. He couldn't sink the Titanic. It left Liverpool, England, on a beautiful morning on April 1912. The Pride of Britannica sailed out to sea. Its next harbor was supposed to be the harbor of New York. The notables of society were amongst those on this ship. They had all the prevalent people with money on this ship. It was an unbelievable ship. All the people with the big money who think money can save them. They were on this ship. Elegance was the word for its interior. Now, 3/4 of the way into its voyage, something happened. It ran into an iceberg, a problem. And the same thing happens to us when we think our life is correct and we think our life is going on the straight and narrow. We run into something that we don't see. It seemed like a problem finds you. Now you get a call from your doctor, we need you to come back in. Or there's a bill you forgot to put in your chapter 7 when you was going filing chapter 7. You forgot this bill. Now they steady hounding you. If it ain't this, is now you got to go up to the school. You can't afford to be off, but the kid's sick. It's always an iceberg out there looming in your life. Now, the thing about this iceberg was, the iceberg, they say it shifted and drifted over into the lane of the ships. Because if you've ever been on a cruise, your boat is not the only boat out there. There's a certain highway, just like driving cars, that the ships go down. So you might not see a ship, but a ship probably ain't but 12 miles over here on this side from you. They're not that far apart. They all go the same lane. They've gotten out there and saw which currents were the best and the safest and the wind gusts, and they go the same. Well, for some reason, this iceberg has drifted over into the lane that the ship was in to go to New York. This ship that is great, this ship that is supposed to be the best ever, that even God couldn't sink. That's problems. How it looks small up top to everybody else. But if they look up underwater, normally an iceberg is 3 times larger underwater than it is on top of water. So people can look at you and think that you're okay. If they really truly knew what was up underwater in your life, they'd be surprised and ask, how are you still moving? They'll start, I don't know how she's still making it. Because now I've looked underwater and saw another part of her problem when everybody else can only see the top of the iceberg. See, the top of the iceberg didn't hit the ship. It was what was underwater that couldn't detect that part of the iceberg that ran into the ship. And now this ship that's immaculate and the interior is exclusive and all these people with this money, now this ship is in trouble. All because of somebody had pride. And they kept their mouth above God. Now the ship is out there in the North Sea, in the cold, sinking. And I'm thinking, okay, that could happen, but why did so many people die? It appears that they would have had more boats on the sides of the ship to make sure they had more than enough for the passengers, but that wasn't the case. He was so arrogant, so prideful that he didn't make enough boats on the side of the ship. And then the other people that were poor on the ship, they wouldn't let them get in the boats with the rich people. Pride. I'm so glad when God come back, he's not looking at color, age, or weight. I'm glad that God got some wings just for me. Yeah, big old me, he got some wings just for me. Here go your wings, boy, go and fly. You've been humble. Oh, over 1,500 people died because of this tragedy. 1,500 people. Now, not only the people, but all the treasures that was on the ship. The ship went 4 miles down in the North Atlantic. Interesting. We just had some people not long ago, may their families be blessed, died trying to get down there to see what pride looks like. You know the men that, and the like 4 men, and then one of the sons of the men, they got in this little spaceship, and went down in the water and trying to go 4 miles down to a place that God had forbidden man to see again. Down there, they didn't even make it. When they did the equation and the mathematics, they say they was looking for them. They had been out there from a Sunday to Wednesday. They were still looking. And when they did the math, they said those guys were dead in a day and a half. They say watch this here. They say the pressure from the ocean was too great. When you try to do what God don't want you to do, try to see what God doesn't want you to see, you start feeling more pressure. You start getting into a place, you wonder why your anxiety is so high, you wonder why your blood pressure is up, you wonder all these things because I'm trying to go and do something that is for my flesh and not for my good. I'm trying to stay in a relationship that's killing me so people won't talk about me. Jesus, I wish trying to just teach today. I don't want to, but it's the truth. You're trying to uphold a position somewhere just so people can say that's an administrator or a supervisor, and you're not productive at all in the job. You just love the status of the position, and you never see your kids. You don't have a relationship with your husband no more. You're never home, and when you're home, you're sleeping tired, and your cell phone going off constantly. Why? You're trying to go and see something and be something that God hasn't created you to be. You're running from what God has called you to do. And when you're running from it, you're running to something else. So to run away from God means to separate yourself from God and go to something that has no power. And when things don't have power, it means they do not have virtue. Without virtue, where is my vision? We are afraid to ask God the direction in which we should go. We just rather do it ourselves because, truth be told, Danny, we always take the easy route. We want more for less, Morgan. We always look for the route that's more comfortable. I wish I can preach this. You want the world, but you're not willing to sacrifice for it. You tell people you're going to an Ivy League school and you don't even do your homework now. Now you got your mama line. Yeah, little Johnny say he's going to University of California. He's going to MIT. And everybody say, okay, well, that's good for little Johnny. And they get up right from you, and they don't want to destroy your pride. And they tell everybody, girl, little Johnny, I don't see it. God is able. But we want to put God in there so it makes us feel better when we talk about him. You know, God is able, but little Johnny just ain't that type of material. But God got something good for little Johnny if little Johnny do what he's supposed to do. Pride. We always want to tell the good about our children. My child is doing this and my child is doing that. Why? So people can, ooh, they child, they doing it. The parent wants all of the glory for the work that the child is doing. And you scared to tell them that your kid is self-sufficient, their self-esteem is a lot higher than yours was. They really push this themselves. You just out there stealing glory. There's a lot of people in the church that steal glory. You stealing somebody else's testimony. You stealing your children, what they're working hard for. You ain't helping them. You ain't helping them with homework not one time. The best thing you did was show them you so they'll know what not to be. Pride. I love the parent who say, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to get you in tutoring. I got a doctorate. And my youngest daughter, we were homeschooling her. And I don't know who was trying to get away from her the quickest, me or my wife. She started doing the math, and I was looking, and hold on, I got to go back to work. Rita, come down here and see what this girl doing. Your mama should be able to help you. Pride was getting in the way, too. We were like, we got to find somebody who can help you with this. Because math is different from when we was in school. They don't even do my dear Aunt Sally no more. That's the farthest I got, my dear Aunt Sally. The kids nowadays, they got other alphabets in there. Yeah, I'm like, when did they get all these long? It's the pride. It's amazing how people have the tendency to have pride. We have more pride in our own abilities than we do in God. We have more pride in our own accomplishments than we do God. And we have more pride in our resources than we do God. Reason I know this, because when things go wrong, instead of going into your knees, posturing and praying to God, the first thing you do is go check with your best friend. Girl, let me tell you what happened. And she's a sackcloth for gossip. Let me tell you what happened. You done told all your business. My husband, such and such, and she over there writing it down like one of Satan's amps. And she said, okay, so when I talk to him, I know not to do this. We're going to get an amen after a while. Now, let me say this, because we're not going to finish this today. This is just the beginning. Pride is not necessarily a bad thing. A certain amount of pride in our God-given talents is good. But when your pride starts superseding God's word, you have a problem. When you become obsessed with your pride more than you do with being righteous, you have a problem. Too much pride can become sinful. It can be extremely sinful in your relationship with God, because pride brings about arrogance. Y'all know anybody arrogant? People that are boastful, always telling you what they got. Always. What about people that are conceited? And selfish. Selfish. I had a friend, he bought a brand new truck. He hadn't been to church when we started the church, but he came to the church after he bought the brand new truck. And he comes and he said, man, I want you to see my brand new truck. And I go outside and look at the truck. I said, man, God bless you. He said, yeah, he ain't letting nobody put nothing in the back of it. I said, why you buy it? I just bought it for me. So I can't put nothing in the back of your truck. Oh, no, you can put something in the back of my truck. I say, whatever you have, man, you should give it to God. Because if it's too valuable for you to give back to God, it brings about a sense of pride. You won't keep it long. Or if you keep it, you will never enjoy it to its fullest. Never will. You see people a lot of times with less money that's happier than people with money. You see families that have all this money and the mom and the daddy doing well, and the family has no type of cohesiveness at all. Children don't eat at the table with the parents. And then you look at your family and say, we barely making it, but we eat together every day. We got some unity in the house. Because of pride, man, pride. Now your job becomes greater than your family. So now I'm working 8 to 10 hours, and then I get home, I got another 2.5 hours or 3 hours to do. Then I'm tired, I speak to the kids in passing. And you never have the relationship that was desired. And this lady over here, she don't make near as much as you do, but her kids love her to the fullest. Her children trust her to the fullest. She can't get them all you give your children. She give them something that has no price tag on them. She give them herself. She refused to work that second job so she can spend more time raising her children. You'll be surprised at how few people raise their children now. There are so many people out here in the world today that are allowing other people to raise their children. They have nannies, and the children grow up loving the nanny more than the mama. They call the nanny mama and call the mama Brenda. Then the mama get in public and she's embarrassed because people are like, why she call you by your first name? Because she don't even really know she's her mom. Mom hasn't invested enough because she's too prideful for the house she lives in to try to keep that mortgage paid instead of just downsizing the house and being comfortable. No, she like this house because everybody come over there. Ooh, that's a pretty house. You never let them go beyond the living room. a pretty house. Pride is something, let me tell you, pride is serious. Pride is one of the most daunting things that causes us to be separated from God. Pride causes us to think that we are our very own God and that we don't need to rely on God. Pride gets you to the point to where I can do it myself. I can do it all by myself. I'm going to figure this out. We're fighting too many battles that God wants to fight for us. God say, seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be open. He's not saying do it yourself. I mean, some things God needs to fight for you. We sing the song all the time, God fight my battle. When the last time God fought a battle for you? From the beginning. I'm not talking about when you suffocating. I'm talking about from the beginning, you know what? This is too big for me. God, this is yours. I'm placing this in your hands, God, because I don't want to get to the point to where I'm arrogant when you do what you're going to do for me. So when I get this right here, I want everybody to understand that I got this credit card because of God helping me with favor. I want everybody to know that my children did this, not because it didn't cause me to be stretched, but because of my God. He did it for me. God, all God wants is our glory, but we won't give God glory because we want the glory ourselves. And when you start glorifying yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's Nebuchadnezzar. He says in the word, he did it, and he asked Daniel, who is God? Because the people that serve me that I went out and captured, I let them serve their God, as long as I can oversee them and their God. And Daniel says, no, brother, not speaking out of turn, but my God is your God. Nebuchadnezzar, no. Your God is not my God. Do you see how much I have built? You see how much I have done? You see all the history I have made? And he did do a lot. But it wasn't without God. The song says God is able to do just what he said he will do. We sing so many songs. If songs could get us to heaven, we all would be in good shape. Because we sing so many songs, but we never put action to what we sing. When you're depressed, what you do? You turn on the gospel. I used to do that. Now, how many do that? I need to be encouraged. I need to be encouraged. So what I do, I put on music. Where's the power in music? God tells us heaven and earth will pass away, but my word shall stand forever. And if God tells us what's going to stand forever, why we don't get to the point to where we're reading the one thing that's going to stand? Why is it that we're not reading the one thing that's going to encourage us, or we're reading the one thing that's going to catamount us to where we need to be, the one thing that's going to give us hope? We don't read the word of God. We refuse to. We want to hear Kurt Franklin. And ain't that wrong with Kurt, but we say Kurt make us feel better. Feeling better in the flesh is nowhere near like the power of God in the spirit. Those are like appetizers to prepare you for the colostrum of God. We have to understand that if we're not using these steps, we're not using the words of God, we too would turn out to be like Nebuchadnezzar. We will think that we're our own God. When you ask people who don't believe in God, why you don't believe in God? I've gotten 50 different answers. I get way more answers as to why people don't believe in God versus my one answer as to why I do. It shows you how much confusion there is in the world. Now, I don't try to knock them. You do your thing, but there is a God. There truly is a God, because man has shown through democracy that this world is jacked up. We have to have one law. We have to have one head done it because bureaucracy has killed the world. Anytime you give people the freedom to vote, you have to be careful what law you're using to allow people the freedom to vote, because look at where we are now. Now you got this Democratic Party over here or this Republican Party over here. They have their beliefs and they do whatever they have to do to make sure they get their menu across. Then you got these people over here whose interested in their best interest is what they believe in, and they do whatever they can to get their interests across. And when you get somebody that want to bring them together, like the last House Speaker we just had, they fire him. People are more interested in self-preservation than they are in God's preservation. It's the truth. We see this stuff every day. I know we use the Bible to kind of get you going, but we see this every day. Pride. People prideful. We got people in gangs that are more prideful about colors than they are about people's lives. We got people that we know who don't care. The National Rifle Association don't care about people dying and who get the guns. They just want to continue to sell. And you got all these people dying, and you've had the last couple of presidents, except this last one, we did the one before the one we got now. They've been saying, hey, we got to do something about the gun situation. And the more people say it, the more they ignore it. The more people say it, the more guns they make, the more guns they sell, because people don't feel comfortable without guns. They've made it to that point because certain streams of bureaucracy can turn your head. Now, I believe to each his own. But now we got it to the point to where when I was coming up, you had the LGBT community, you didn't even know them. They hid. You know why they hid? Because they know they were doing wrong. That's not in the Bible. Now, I believe to each his own. You give the freedom of choice to everybody, but don't try to go out here and enforce your belief upon me. I treat everybody the same, that's fine, but you can't do that to me. Why we do that now? Through voting. President Obama, man, gave up his religion so he can get that population's vote. And they money. I know somebody mad, but it's the truth. I want to show you what it means to keep your pride. He gave up his religion. He went against what his religion said so that he can get this certain population vote. And then start putting things in place. And now what's happening? They have taken over. Now everything is, if you don't do this for me, if you don't hire me, then I'm going to sue. Or if you don't do this for me, I'm going to sue. Or I'm going to do this or that. And now people scared, so people get on. And instead of just saying, hey, man, do what you do, that's fine. But equality going to be the same. Equality has to be the same. You can't get special privileges, because if that's the case, I feel like we should get special privileges because we've been in bondage since we got here. People got too much pride, though. We don't even come together and rally. We had Black Lives Matter, and I ain't seen the matter yet. And then people get mad. Young people get mad when you say this. What are they doing? That's what I be asking. I'm like, what are they doing? Who? I just saw the lady who started it. I saw how she has come up and how she's living. She's living immaculately with no agenda, just a name. Because people are thirsty to say they were a part of something before they look into it. But we got all the information and all the definition we need about Jesus Christ, and we still don't believe it. We look at Pakistan and we think about Pakistan and what's going on over there in Pakistan and Israel. And people think, oh, Israel's wrong. They're taking over Pakistan. I'd be like, wait a minute, hold up, back up. Read. There was a truce between Pakistan and Israel. at one point, and Israel started giving all these resources to Pakistan. And what's crazy is about during the time Israel was giving all these resources to Pakistan, Israel was fighting with Egypt. And then they came together and say, hey, you know what? We need to stop this fighting. They called a truce. Now they work together. Now Egypt is the one coming in, and Israel said, okay, we're going to stop this war for 4 days so Egypt can come in and bring resources to help Pakistan. When you get to the point where you're not too prideful, you make a difference. When you get to the point to where you say, it's not about me, how can I help you? When you get to the point to where you feel better being a blessing than being blessed, you're on the right path. When you look up and say, hey, I feel better because I'm supporting my grandchildren, because I didn't do right with my children. But I'm pouring into my grandchildren. Now I'm at a place to where I'm not prideful no more. That's what me and my wife said. Our children got through college. Now they got on through college. But we said from this point on, lesson learned, we're going to make sure our grandchildren are much farther ahead. I pray for the bloodline in my family every day. I had no idea why we doing this. My sister been doing it. Quietly, behind the scenes. She don't pass me and my wife. She already on it. Then I'm up here trying to catch her. Because it ain't about pride. I want to make sure my daughters don't have the same stress or strain me and my wife had. So even if the kids, or when they get their scholarships, they'll have all this extra money put to the side. Because one thing I learned at a PWI is that most of the white kids come out of school. Can I say this? Just be real. When white kids come out of school, their parents have them set up with a lot of things that we're starting out with going in debt. I'm glad Sarah here, she a UGA grad too. She'll tell you, these white kids come out, when they walking down the aisle, you walking down, oh, student loans. You know what they walking down? I'm glad I already have a job. I'm working over here with such and such corporation. How you get that job? My dad owes the guy over there. They hooked up and got me in. And then you start talking to this person over here, and they say it's so prideful. I'm working at such and such incorporated, and I'm an engineer over here, and I'm such and such. And then you're looking at us, and we just walking down. Man, these student loans. Student loans. It's a different world. Because we're too prideful to sacrifice for the good of those who come in behind us. Back in the 60s, they weren't. We can't even get people to march no more. You know why we can't get people to march? Because we can't get people to church. The marches started in the church. They had no pride. They didn't care. They knew going out they would be clean. Coming back in, they were blooded with dog bites and fire hoses and all that and billy clubs up against their head. But they didn't care about pride. They cared about the future. We don't do that today. Some of the biggest arguments and most bickering you have is in-house fighting. Families who don't speak. Families who overhear the nucleus of the family, because we don't care no more. We're all about being right. And half of the time, your being right is lying. It's fabricating. I want the truth. I want to get to a place to where I can look back. At least I might be able to make a change in our whole culture. But I want to be able to look back at least in my bloodline and say, I made a difference. I wasn't prideful. I sacrificed to do this. I might not be around when this money matures, but they'll know my name. They'll remember their granddaddy and grandmama they'll be looking back and saying, my grandmama, my aunt, my dad, look at what they did. How did you get out like that? You my color. I had people who wasn't so prideful. I had people who were willing to sacrifice for the good of another. When was the last time you sacrificed for the good of someone else? I don't want nothing back from you. If somebody know about it, you told them. We're in a very serious season because Christmas brings more stress than any other season in the year. And when people get stressed, those predators benefit. What's a predator? Buy here, pay here. Those loan places that's up and down the streets, that's open on Sundays too. Yeah, layaways. You know how many people get entrapped in layaway? You got to put 25% down, 50% down now, honey. You used to just put $20 down till you get it. Now you got to put 50% down. And if you don't get it out in 7 days, we're going to put it back out and keep your money. It's a tough world out here because we don't look out for each other. Used to be when you had a problem, Elder Bentley, you can always go to family. When we were coming up, I don't care how bad it got, family was always there, Elder Tench. You're going to hear something from grandmama. She's going to sit you down and have a conversation with you. But you could always go to family. What has happened with our race to where families don't even get together? To where it's more feuding in the family feud is so true. Because families don't even mend. They're not even cohesive. They don't even forgive. Their biggest thing is trying to degrade the person that they're mad at. And ain't nobody getting the glory but Satan. And eventually you lose. Just like next week, we're going to start really diving into how Nebuchadnezzar lost. When I tell you everything that he did, then I want to wrap back around and tell you what he lost. 7 years. What he had to endure by himself. And what he gained after he endured. After he found himself. Don't allow this season to cause your pride to be enhanced to where you become in competition with others. Please don't do it. Please do not do it. Stay calm. Make a plan for yourself. If you're married, you and your spouse get together and y'all make a plan together. If you're single, write your vision out for this month, just December alone, and make it plain. Tell your children the truth. Quit lying to them. Quit fabricating. Tell them the truth, baby. We're going to be able to get everybody one toy this year. And the older you are, the more money you get to spend. This is how much you get. This is how much you get. You go ahead and put it out, put it on a sheet of paper, and give it to mama. It's the best I can do. But I refuse to get a PS2 and my lights off. Come January. Because January coming. And don't try to play the time game. Well, if I get my last check in December, I can go ahead and do my taxes. Why spend money you don't have? One of the things I've ever learned, ma'am, in life, don't spend it before you get it. Because something always go wrong when you're trying to get it before you spend. You don't get it, and now you've made this commitment. Now you got to borrow. Pride brings about punishment. We're going to really get into the Bible next week. It's going to be good. I promise you. Come back next week. Take your notes because we're going to have something to take. That with pride the result is always punishment at some point as we stand.
You've just had an experience with champions, and we are so glad that you tuned in today. Let's continue to honor God through our commitment to give. There are 4 ways to give. You can give online via Cash App at $Champions for Christ. Next, you can give online at www.championsforchristim.org. Lastly, you can give during service or on our mobile app available in the Apple and Google Play stores. Please be sure to tune in each and every week to our online broadcast. Encourage others to tune in with you. Remember, we are champions because we are champions for Christ.